As you are aware, there has been an effort over a number of years to acquire property on Military Drive, as it is adjacent to the college and integral to the future development of the lands already owned by the college. In this particular instance, a seller who owns a home on Military Drive with some partners approached me asking if the college was still interested in pursuing the acquisition of properties on Military Drive. I explained to him that the process was that the college is bound by statute not to pay any more than appraised value for any property purchase, and if the seller was amenable to that, and the seller and his partner was amenable to that, that I would proceed with getting an appraisal done. The seller agreed to that condition, and I contacted Cammie Peterson of Lakeside Appraisals, who has done other appraisals on our Military Drive properties. Actually, I believe she's done almost all of the ones on all the Military Drive properties that are residential. There is a difference between a residential appraiser and a commercial appraiser, so they can't cross. So anyway, Cammie did the appraisal. When I got the valuation from Cammie, I shared it with the seller to see if they were amenable to that price, and they said they were. And so we proceeded with doing all the due diligence from a documentation, purchase and sale agreement, title searches, and et cetera. So I am here this evening requesting approval to have the president and I execute on the purchase and sale agreement for 737 Military with an appraised value of $620,000.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I think it's important to understand that when a community college purchases property, as Sarah said, it has to be an appraised value by statute. So, and what's also important is that those discussions typically take place between the administration and the potential seller, and those usually are not public discussions because it's a negotiation. We don't want somebody, if the college is really interested in buying the property, we don't want somebody to come in and start competing and trying to bid it up beyond, because in this community, historically, that can happen. So we wanted to make sure that, and Sarah did this, preserve the opportunity. The way this does happen is we put together a purchase and sale agreement. It is signed by the sellers, and the administration does also agree to it, but it is all very clearly and stated in the contract. This is subject to approval by the Board of Trustees, and if the board does not approve it, it doesn't go through. If the board approves it, it can go through. So what my office does is we prepare a resolution, and the resolution sets forth basically the terms, the history and the terms, and I've given each of the trustees a copy of the resolution that we've prepared in this case, and you've got a copy of the appraisal, so you know that that's consistent. So the resolution also includes not only the approval of the sale, if the board chooses to pass the resolution, but it also documents that the appraised value is entered into the records of the Board of Trustees, which is required by statute. So, Mr. Chairman, to consider here is we need a motion to approve this resolution, which is Resolution 2022-02, which will enter the appraisal into the board record and would authorize the president as designee to execute the documents necessary to purchase the property. So the motion is to adopt the resolution 2022-02.
Can I have that motion, please? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And maybe Trustee Banducci remembers, maybe Sarah, you remember. I'm going back in history. I think when we purchased the mill site, we took foregone balance to do that, and maybe Mr. Lyons can help with this. And it was like $2.5 million that we'd set aside annually for purchase of property. Is that correct, your recollection?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, yes, the foregone monies that were started back then, that was kept by each board separate, that incremental amount, and to put into a capital fund to be used to purchase property to expand the college's geographic footprint. When the college purchased the Stimson Mill site years and years ago, I don't think anybody, member of the board was here, President Swain certainly wasn't here, that was done, and that added a huge geographic area to the college for future growth, and that was done. The process there was a little bit different with this, but it was done legally, and it was done consistent with eventually a judicial review and past judicial review.
Is that the one we got sued over, the mill site, right?
That was challenged, yes,
Yeah, but
it was,
Spencer, right?
and
Spencer.
the court agreed with what the college was doing. College and the
Before,
foundation
as the
cooperated.
lease, or because we purchased with the foregone taxes that we pulled in?
The transaction was approved, Trustee McKenzie. So it
Well,
was,
which one? There was two. One we had a lease from the foundation, and one that we actually purchased using the foregone.
Trustee McKenzie,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
indicate you wish to speak so I can monitor that.
Asking for clarity of what he's saying.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, what we're dealing with now, that was done properly, in my opinion. I was there, and I assisted with that. But what we're here for today is to see about purchasing this property, this smaller piece of property which is adjacent to the campus, and so we have the motion before the court, or before the board.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Trustee McKenzie,
Mr. Banducci, or Trustee Banducci can go first if you don't mind. Oh, go ahead.
pardon, I don't think we can hear you.
I'll let Trustee Banducci go first.
Trustee Banducci?
Yeah, a couple things. First sidebar. Mark, I'm glad you thought it was right, but you didn't ask Sir Greg's questions. He asked two. That's all right, but just next time maybe answer the question. Glad you thought it was legal and okay, though. The concern of the property is we've recently had a property purchase that came under a lot of scrutiny, and the original appraisal, which was about 98 pages, was withheld from the trustees. At my understanding, the advice for legal counsel, they gave us a synopsis, and even that, a couple of us didn't get to the meeting, so we reviewed it as quickly as we could. And then further looking at the pages that were finally released by one of the other leaders here at the college, so we could see that, there were some concerns, and it was only one appraisal. Now, normally, in government work, my understanding is for best practices standard is that 3 appraisals. So here we are now with this property. I've only got one appraisal again, and the date of the appraisal is the 25th of August, which is 2 months ago. Now, I was raised here in North Idaho, and winter's coming, snow's flown. Property values don't really go up in the wintertime, in the fall. So we've had 2 months pass, interest rates have come up, housing market is struggling, sales are down, listings are down, values are down. And so I'm looking at an appraisal that's over 2 months old, and I'm paying $620,000 for this house. And I guess I question that number and whether that's a proper number and whether that's a current and number that we should be paying, and if that's really the value that this would be holding in the end of October going into the winter here in North Idaho, where very few real estate transactions occur, especially residential. Few in the fall as people are trying to get settled before school starts, few in the spring as people are getting ready to move or relocate in the summer. But we're certainly not at the optimum time for residential transactions with a 2-month-old appraisal, and that seems like an awful lot of money. $620,000 will set a record for anything that we've ever spent on a residential house over there. So I just have some concerns, and I want to make sure we've vetted it and we've looked at this and that we're doing our best as fiduciaries. Yeah, we have money, but just because we have it doesn't mean we need to spend it. It's still the taxpayers' money, and we are fiduciaries. So I do have some concerns on how current this appraisal is and where we're at on this number.
Thank you for your comments. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I'm over it.
Trustee McKenzie?
Okay, so my experience purchasing properties, which this would be the third one that I've been on a board on that they did it, is the appraisals really aren't done until the board has expressed an interest into purchasing the property. So as you just said, like, this appraisal then must have been ordered before we even met for executive session. That wasn't properly noticed. Is that true?
Trustee McKenzie, as
I mean, it was 3 days after we.
Trustee McKenzie, as I said at the beginning of my comments, that I am operating under the guidance that I've been provided long-term by the board to acquire properties on Military Drive.
All right. And this appraisal company, is it the same company that did the just previous properties a couple months back?
The Fort Ground Grill, no, sir, it's not the same company.
How was the appraisal company chosen?
It was chosen based on the fact that we had used this company with, for prior appraisals on Military Drive for the other properties that we have acquired on that.
For the other residential versus business?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. And like, this is, how, I noticed this one has a shop on it, and like, I guess, this is not the property. So like, there was a property that Widmeyer was renting to himself through his property management company that the college wasn't even aware of, but likely, like, to his credit, Steve Widmeyer was actually paying fair market rate for what he was renting. Is this the one like adjacent to that one, or like where is it?
This particular location is next door to, it is 737 Military Drive. It's the third house from parking lot A on Military Drive on the side facing the mill site.
All right. I just feel that this, I mean, I was even walking past Lyons and Wolf's conversation about how just let us, referring to Todd Banducci and me, speak as much as we want, because essentially you got the votes wrapped up already. I just feel like this is just one more example where votes of this board have been coordinated outside of board meetings. And I just feel like you three appointed trustees have had such unchallenged success in coordinating your decisions outside of board meetings that you're just doing it again and again. And I just feel you're just steamrolling anyone else on this board, not taking input from the community, even though they're asking you to amend the minutes. And I just see the accreditation agency, like, they basically told us to start working together, and that's not what you guys are doing.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any further?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
couple quick questions. Ms. Garcia, how many properties do we own on Military Drive?
We currently
Approximately.
own 8 properties on Military Drive.
Okay.
And there are, including this one that we're considering, 8 that we don't own.
Okay. Is anyone currently living in this property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're on a month-to-month lease.
And any immediate intended use for this property, or we?
Not immediate intended use. The long-term plan, as the board has, as I've been alluding to, or actually stating outright since about these properties, is the idea will be to, we would like to acquire all the properties on Military Drive and be able to basically close down that as a public street and encapsulate it as part of the campus. And then we can use that space for student housing or employee housing or additional buildings as needed.
Thank you very much.
Sure, well,
Trustee Banducci?
Sarah, have you had the opportunity to do a walkthrough on this property?
I have not.
Do we have anybody here that has? Because I'm not familiar with the property.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at the picture.
Yes, sir.
And if this was a commercial building, I would not call that a Class A office space. So I'm trying to get a feel for exactly what the quality of this residence is. At first blush, or at least from the picture, I'm not thinking it's terribly high.
And Trustee Banducci, Chair Wold, but Trustee Banducci, if you'll allow me a little grace here. The appraisal was done in August. I did come to the meeting in September prepared for an executive session to have a conversation about this property at that time, and we were unsuccessful in going into session because it was not on the agenda as an action item. We could not discuss it last month. So this has been the earliest potential that we could have this conversation about this particular property. So that is why the appraisal is 2 months old.
Well, I don't believe that's the question I asked, but thank you for the information. My question was, has anybody done a walkthrough of that property, or is there anybody in this room that could speak to the condition of that property? Again, looking at the picture, it's not terribly impressive. So I'm wondering, you know,
No, sir, because
what we have here.
because the property is currently occupied, we have to get permission from the occupants to even do the appraisal. And I did not accompany the appraiser at the time that she got that permission.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Is there any further discussion? Yes?
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Goodde.
couple more questions.
Yes, please, go right ahead.
Ms. Garcia, of the other residential properties that have been purchased on Military Drive, how many had more than one appraisal?
0.
Follow-up. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Garcia, is there still money in the capital fund to cover this purchase?
Yes, sir, there is. In the capital investment reserve, there is ample funds to cover this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee McKenzie, yes.
I would just like to relay, of the many people who've asked me questions about this, when I say that the college did receive an appraisal and try and justify the good workings going on here at North Idaho College, a huge quantity of people just came back. You only had one appraisal, and to hear that it's common practice when I'm hearing from the feedback in other business communities is that's not right. And I would advocate that we at least get one more appraisal. I think that would be wise.
Thank you. Are there any further comments?
I think also, I mean, I feel like you guys got these votes already wrapped up in your lame duck session, so.
Mr. Chairman, I object. We
What?
have no
You do?
lame duck session.
You're not coming back again, so you just said down below that this is your last.
I would hope that we could treat each other with some respect and dignity and work through problems and come to conclusions. And at this point in time,
I have one
I'm
more
gonna
question.
call the
Was the
question-
mill site the property that Steve Widmeyer resigned from the North Idaho College board over, or was it a different one?
Now, does that have anything to do with this motion?
I'm just trying to
No.
highlight
Point-
that this North Idaho College does not have a
point of
great
order
track
on you.
record
Ask you to
acquiring
speak to the
properties. And I would like to even have like a full, honestly, review of all the properties that we've had in the past 12 years.
You could bring that up if you'd like, but right now the motion is this property.
I call for the question.
Question's been called for. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed to the motion, nay.
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 The motion passed 3-2.
Chairman Wool,
Yes, Trustee Banducci.
I find that interesting, talking about respect and dignity. That was something I even addressed down below myself. And I would encourage us to quit lying about each other and being truthful about what's current information and what's not.
I would hope
we
that
had
we
that
could
discussion
keep personal
downstairs. Let's keep it
problems
going.
away from this board meeting, please. Let's get down to business. Tab 2 is action item on the president's evaluation. This has been